I never thought a single phone call could completely upend my life, but that's exactly what happened. It was a brisk autumn afternoon in Chicago when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I was tempted to let it ring, but something compelled me to pick up. As soon as I answered, the voice on the other end sent a shiver down my spine. It had been years, but I knew exactly who it was. "Samantha, it's Isabella," she said, her voice carrying a strange mix of cold politeness and something I couldn't quite place. "Isabella?" I responded, doing my best to keep my tone calm. "What's going on?" My estranged sister had reached out to share the devastating news that our grandmother had passed away. The shock of her words hit me, but the way she delivered them was even more unsettling. It was as though she had an ulterior motive. "I just thought you should know," she said, her voice laced with what sounded like a subtle sneer. "I'm sure you're preoccupied with your humble little life." I could almost picture the smug smile spreading across her face as she spoke. Her words cut deep, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing it. "Thanks for letting me know. I'll make plans to come," I replied, keeping my composure. Yet it wasn't just her tone that hurt. It was the flood of painful memories she had stirred up from our past. Growing up, things were never simple between us. Isabella had always been the favorite, the one who could do no wrong in our father's eyes. With her effortless charm and magnetic personality, everything seemed to align perfectly for her. Meanwhile, I was the one left in the background. No matter how hard I worked or how much I achieved, my efforts never seemed to shine in comparison. Our relationship had been strained for years, especially after she betrayed me in the most unforgivable way. She stole David from me. After that, I made the decision to sever ties, not just with Isabella but with the rest of my family as well. It wasn't solely about her stealing my fiancé, it was about what it symbolized. It exposed the favoritism and unfairness I had felt all my life. David Parker had been my world, my future, my everything. We had dreams and plans for a life together. But then Isabella, with her calculating charm, stepped in and turned it all upside down. David left me for her, and the pain of that betrayal cut deeper than words can describe. Our family was never a picture of harmony. My father, strict and unrelenting, had always shown a clear preference for Isabella, who mirrored his personality and ambition. My mother, though kind and loving, was often caught in the crossfire, trying to balance everything. She offered me support in her own way, but it was evident that Isabella remained the star of the family. And as always, I was left in the shadows. After the breakup, I chose to walk a different road. I left my job as a school administrator and turned my attention to raising my daughter, Lily. My husband, John, a kind and supportive tech executive, loved me for who I truly was. We built a modest but warm life in the suburbs, filled with love and simplicity. Our daughter Lily, only 6 years old, was the light of our lives. She had an incredible talent for drawing and even managed to run a popular YouTube channel showcasing her artwork to the world. Despite the happiness in my current life, Isabella's call stirred up a storm of buried emotions. The idea of returning to the family home for the funeral brought on a mix of dread and nostalgia. I hadn't set foot there in years, and the memories it held were as painful as they were precious. Our grandmother had been a rare source of unconditional love and support in my life, a steady light in the chaos of our family. Her passing felt like the closing of a chapter, and Isabella's call was forcing me to confront a past I had worked hard to leave behind. Over the next few days, I began preparing for the trip. The thought of facing Isabella again after all these years made my chest tighten. The prospect of seeing Isabella again filled me with an uneasy blend of apprehension and curiosity. It wasn't just about saying goodbye at the funeral, it was about stepping back into the complicated family dynamics that had shaped so much of who I was. Something about Isabella's call gnawed at me, a sense that there was more to her reaching out than simply delivering the news of our grandmother's passing. When the day finally came, I found myself standing before the old family home. It looked exactly as it had in my memories, yet there was an almost imperceptible difference, as if the house itself bore the weight of time. The walls seemed to whisper with the echoes of our childhood, Moments of laughter, arguments, fleeting dreams, and lingering disappointments. Inside, the air was thick with a blend of grief and nostalgia. Familiar faces surrounded me, their expressions ranging from genuine sorrow to barely concealed ulterior motives. As I wove through the crowd, my eyes landed on Isabella. She stood at the center of a group, her presence as magnetic as ever, effortlessly commanding attention. Her polished demeanor and sharp gaze gave nothing away, yet I could sense the same calculated confidence that had always unnerved me. Watching her, I couldn't shake the tension that lingered between us, despite the years and miles that separated our lives. It felt as though nothing had changed. We were still entangled in the same unspoken rivalry. Isabella's presence was an unshakable reminder of the tangled web of family dynamics that had always loomed over my life. In the middle of the ceremony, as heartfelt eulogies were being shared, she managed to catch me alone. "Samantha," she said with a practiced smile that lacked any real warmth, "it's been a while." I returned her smile, though it felt strained. "Yes, it has. How have you been?" "Oh, you know," she replied, her tone syrupy and insincere. "Life has been interesting." Her words carried a subtle edge, the same undercurrent of rivalry that had simmered between us for as long as I could remember. As I looked at her, it became clear that this reunion wasn't just about saying goodbye to our grandmother. It was also about facing the ghosts of our shared past, the betrayals, the unspoken grievances, and the choices that had shaped both our lives in such profound ways. What I didn't realize then was how this encounter would set off a series of revelations that would upend everything I thought I knew about my sister and our family. In the days leading up to the funeral, the tension was palpable. I threw myself into the rhythm of daily life with John, Lily, and the comforting routines of our home, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the weight of the impending confrontation with Isabella. And the family I had distanced myself from, the echoes of the past, both familiar and painful, felt almost tangible. On the day of the funeral, the atmosphere was thick with grief and unresolved tension. The family home, a place that had once been a backdrop to so many moments in my life, was now filled with relatives and acquaintances, all gathered to pay their respects. Its worn but enduring charm seemed to hold a silent vigil over us, the walls steeped in the memories of arguments, laughter, and buried truths. As I stepped into the living room, I could feel Isabella's gaze on me, sharp and unrelenting. She stood there, poised and immaculate, her polished demeanor only emphasizing the long-standing rivalry simmering beneath the surface. It didn't take long before she made her way over to me again, her smile softer this time, but still carrying an undeniable edge. "I've been meaning to catch up," Isabella said, her tone laced with a mix of curiosity and something unspoken. "It's been so long since we've really talked." I returned her smile, though it felt more like a reflex than genuine warmth. "Yes, it has. How have things been for you?" "Oh, you know," she said with a casual wave of her hand, her voice carrying a practiced nonchalance. "Busy but good. I'm sure you've heard from the family about how—" Her words trailed off, but the pointed way she said "the family" made it clear that this conversation wasn't just about catching up. It was about reasserting her position, the same way she always had. The way she spoke about him now was both infuriating and revealing. Isabella's casual, almost dismissive remarks about David seemed calculated, as if she wanted to remind me of her victory while pretending it no longer mattered. Every mention of his name stirred up memories I had tried to bury, of the love we had shared, the life we had planned, and how effortlessly she had torn it all apart. As I listened to her, I couldn't help but notice the cracks in her polished exterior. Her tales of her glamorous life in Los Angeles, her lavish lifestyle, and her so-called accomplishments felt exaggerated, as if she were performing for an audience rather than speaking from the heart. It was clear she wanted everyone to see her as the shining star, the one who had risen above, but I knew better. Beneath the surface was the same manipulative, insecure person I had known for years. Throughout the wake, she continued to dominate conversations, making sure her voice carried above the hum of mourning relatives. Yet, There was an emptiness to her words, a hollow ring that hinted at something she wasn't saying. I watched her, feeling both irritated and curious, wondering what truths she was hiding behind her carefully constructed image. The mention of David was the hardest to endure. She spoke about him with an air of nonchalance, as if their failed marriage hadn't fazed her in the slightest. But I knew Isabella too well to believe that. The pain she had caused me all those years ago was still fresh, and hearing her speak about him so casually felt like she was reopening an old wound just to see if it would still hurt. "Just about David," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of years of suppressed emotion. "It was about trust, about family, about you always needing to take something from me to feel like you've won." Isabella's expression remained cool, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, annoyance, maybe, or even guilt. "Samantha, you act like I planned this grand betrayal," she said, her tone sharp now. "David wasn't stolen. He chose me because we connected in a way and he never could. That's not my fault." Her words cut deep, but I refused to let her see how much they hurt. "Connected?" I scoffed. "You used him, Isabella, just like you use everyone. You've always been about winning, about being the center of attention. Did you even love him, or was it just about proving you could take him from me?" She crossed her arms, her composure slipping slightly. "Believe what you want, Samantha. I'm not here to defend myself to you. If you're still hung up on this after all these years, that's your issue, not mine." Her indifference was like a slap in the face. "You'll never get it," I said quietly, my voice heavy with exhaustion. "This wasn't just about David. It was about how you've treated me my whole life. Like I was nothing but a stepping stone for you." Isabella rolled her eyes, clearly done with the conversation. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. "But I've moved on, Samantha. Maybe it's time you did too." As she turned to walk away, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. Confronting her hadn't brought the closure I'd hoped for. It had only reminded me of how deep the cracks in our relationship really were. It was clear there were truths she was desperate to hide. The confrontation with Isabella had left me emotionally drained, and though I tried to focus on the funeral and the people around me, my thoughts kept circling back to her words. Her dismissiveness, her deflection, it all felt like a carefully constructed shield to protect herself from facing the reality of what she'd done. As the day wore on, the cracks in her facade became harder to ignore. Isabella's interactions with others at the funeral seemed forced, her charm too polished, her laughter too hollow. It was as if she were performing for an audience, clinging to the image of the flawless, successful sister. But I saw through it. The unresolved tension between us lingered, a constant reminder of the past and the wounds that still festered. As much as I wanted to leave it all behind and return to the life I had built with John and Lily, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Isabella's story than she let on. By the time the funeral ended, I felt a mix of relief to be leaving and unease about the unanswered questions that hung in the air. The family dynamics remained as complicated as ever, and I knew that confronting the truth about Isabella and about our family was far from over. The cracks in her perfect life were starting to show, and I had a feeling that whatever lay beneath them would change everything. Wasn't content to let things lie. Just a week after the funeral, she reached out again, her call as unexpected as the first. This time, her voice carried a hint of urgency cloaked in her usual aloofness. "Samantha, we need to talk," she said, skipping pleasantries entirely. I hesitated, the weight of our unresolved confrontation still fresh in my mind. "What is it, Isabella?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "There's something about the family, about Grandma's estate, that you should know," she said, her words carefully measured but dripping with intrigue. The mention of our grandmother's estate sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just about the money or property. It was about uncovering truths buried deep within our family's fractured history. The days following the call were a whirlwind of emotion. I felt torn between the life I had built for myself and the unresolved questions that Isabella's words had unearthed. John, ever supportive, encouraged me to follow my instincts, while Lily's innocent laughter served as a reminder of the simple joys in life. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something bigger, a revelation that would finally expose the full extent of the betrayals, secrets, and lies that had shaped our lives. Despite the apprehension that came with dealing with Isabella, I was determined. This time, I wouldn't shy away. The truth, no matter how painful, needed to come to light. Response was swift and predictable. She took to her own social media to defend herself, posting a long, dramatic statement about family misunderstandings and how she was disappointed to see personal matters turned into public spectacles. Her words were laced with just enough vagueness to maintain plausible deniability, but it was clear she was rattled. The irony was palpable. For years, Isabella had thrived on twisting narratives to her advantage, painting herself as the golden child while belittling everyone else. But this time, she was losing control of the story. The comments on her posts became a battlefield, with some defending her carefully curated image and others pointing out the cracks exposed by Lily's video. For the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment. I hadn't intended for Lily's channel to become a weapon, but seeing the truth resonate with people felt like a small victory. The support we received from strangers was overwhelming, with many applauding Lily's talent and the positivity of our message. Meanwhile, Isabella's posts grew less frequent and more defensive, her usual confidence clearly shaken. It was evident that the facade she had worked so hard to maintain was beginning to crumble under the weight of public scrutiny. While the social media storm raged on, I focused on ensuring Lily remained grounded, reminding her that the purpose of her channel was to share joy and creativity, not to engage in battles. Yet, deep down, I knew this was far from over. Isabella wasn't the type to back down easily, and I braced myself for whatever move she might make next. Always tried to play the peacemaker, seemed overwhelmed by the chaos. She reached out to me, her voice heavy with regret and worry. "Samantha," she said during one of our rare phone calls, "I don't know how things got so bad. I tried to hold the family together, but it's all falling apart." As Isabella's world crumbled, the cracks in her perfect image widened for all to see. The social media backlash was relentless, with people dissecting her past actions and exposing the fabrications she had used to prop up her reputation. Her once glamorous life was now under scrutiny, and even those who had once admired her began to distance themselves. David's downward spiral only added fuel to the fire. His dismissal from work had left him struggling financially, and his inability to cope with the mounting pressure had led to the collapse of his and Isabella's already fragile relationship. The divorce was swift and merciless, a reflection of Isabella's need to distance herself from a situation she could no longer control. But it was their son, James, who bore the brunt of their implosion. Caught in the middle of his parents' unraveling lives, he was placed in a care facility when Isabella's situation became too unstable to provide for him. It was a heartbreaking development, a stark reminder of how far the mighty had fallen. The shifting family dynamics forced everyone to confront uncomfortable truths. My mother, who had always avoided taking sides, seemed lost as the family she had tried to hold together splintered even further. For me, it was a bittersweet moment, a vindication of sorts, but one that came at a tremendous cost. As I watched Isabella's carefully constructed life collapse, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. There was a sense of justice in seeing the truth finally come to light, but also a deep sadness for James, an innocent caught in the crossfire of his parents' choices. The family had reached a turning point, and I knew the road ahead would force us all to face the consequences of our past decisions. Importance of focusing on the present and cherishing the life we had worked so hard to create. My mother's apology, while sincere, couldn't erase the years of pain, but it did offer a sense of closure. I chose to accept her words without letting them reopen old wounds. Instead, I redirected my energy toward nurturing the happiness I had found with John and Lily. The outing to the amusement park was a balm for our weary hearts. Lily's laughter as she raced from one ride to the next, her eyes sparkling with excitement, was a reminder of what truly mattered. John and I held hands, watching her joyfully explore, and for the first time in weeks, the weight of family drama lifted. The day was filled with small but meaningful moments: a shared ice cream cone, cheering Lily on as she won a stuffed animal at a game booth, and a quiet ride on the Ferris wheel where we marveled at the view and the peace we felt together. These moments reminded me of the strength of the life we had built, far removed from the chaos and rivalry of my past. As the sun set and the park's lights twinkled around us, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The drama with Isabella and the family no longer defined me. My focus was on the love and stability I had with John and Lily, a life built on trust, support, and genuine happiness. This was the family I had chosen, and it was everything I needed. As he struggled to rebuild after losing his job and the fallout from his marriage, while I no longer felt anger toward him, I couldn't help but see his situation as a reflection of the choices he had made. His path, like Isabella's, was shaped by decisions rooted in selfishness and deception. For me, the weeks following our family outing were a time of healing and reflection. The chaos that had once consumed me seemed like a distant storm, and the calm that followed was both a relief and a revelation. I found myself focusing more on the little joys: Lily's infectious giggles as she worked on her drawings, John's steady presence as we built a life of love and trust, and the simple pleasure of a quiet evening together. Isabella's downfall, while dramatic, felt like the natural consequence of a life built on manipulation and envy. Her attempts to cast my life in a negative light had only highlighted the cracks in her own. The loss of James to a care facility was the most tragic outcome, a stark reminder of how innocent lives are often caught in the collateral damage of adult choices. David, once the love of my life, had become a distant memory, someone I no longer resented but had learned from. His struggles, though difficult to witness from afar, no longer weighed on me. I wished him the best in his journey to find peace, but I knew his story was no longer entwined with mine. As I looked around at my little family, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The trials we had faced had only strengthened our bond. The drama of the past had taught me the importance of moving forward with love, forgiveness, and an unwavering commitment to the people who truly mattered. While the journey wasn't over, I felt ready to face whatever came next, secure in the knowledge that we had built something resilient, something real, a future filled with light, hope, and endless possibilities. The importance of building a life rooted in genuine love and support. While I appreciated my mother's effort to reach out, I knew that healing the wounds of the past would require more than words. It would take consistent actions and time. Still, her letter felt like a small step toward understanding, and I chose to meet it with grace. In the meantime, my focus remained on the life John, Lily, and I had created. Each day brought its own little victories, whether it was Lily's excitement over a new drawing or John and I sharing a quiet moment after a long day. These moments reminded me that true happiness didn't come from external validation or the approval of others. It came from the love and strength within our own home. Lily's YouTube channel continued to thrive, a bright spot not only for her but for us as well. Her joy in sharing her art with the world was infectious, and the supportive comments from her growing audience were a welcome contrast to the negativity we had faced. Watching her passion blossom was a reminder of the resilience and positivity that could emerge even from difficult times. As for the lessons learned, they were many. My parents' favoritism had hurt deeply, but it had also taught me the value of fairness, the strength found in forgiveness, and the importance of breaking cycles of resentment. Isabella's downfall was a stark example of the cost of envy and manipulation, while David's struggles underscored the consequences of choices driven by selfishness. Through it all, I had discovered my own resilience and the power of choosing peace over conflict. The bonds I had with John and Lily were my foundation, and the trials we had endured only made them stronger. As I folded my mother's letter and placed it in a drawer, I felt a quiet sense of resolution. The past might still linger in shadows, but the future was bright, and my focus was firmly on the light ahead. A profound transformation in my life and perspective. What once felt like insurmountable pain and betrayal had become the foundation for growth, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. The struggles with Isabella, the heartbreak with David, and the years of feeling overlooked within my family had shaped me, but they no longer defined me. As I poured my energy into the community initiative, I felt a sense of fulfillment that I hadn't experienced before. The project became a way to channel my experiences into something meaningful, offering tools and resources to families grappling with the kinds of conflicts I had faced. Workshops, support groups, and even an online platform began to take shape, each piece a reflection of the lessons I had learned about communication, empathy, and forgiveness. At home, life continued to blossom. John and I often spoke about how far we had come as a couple, our bond strengthened by the storms we had weathered together. Lily, with her boundless creativity, became a source of constant inspiration. Watching her thrive reminded me of the importance of fostering a supportive and loving environment, something I was determined to extend beyond my own household through the initiative. The changing seasons mirrored the shift in my own life. As fall leaves painted the landscape in warm hues, I saw the beauty in letting go of old grievances, lingering pain, and the need for external validation. The turbulence of the past had been painful, but it had also brought clarity and a renewed focus on what truly mattered. Looking back, I felt a sense of gratitude for the journey. It wasn't easy, but it had led me to a place of peace and purpose. The bonds within my family, the lessons learned, and the work I was doing to help others all felt like a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of moving forward with love and understanding. A profound transformation. Isabella's story had become a cautionary tale, a reminder of the destructive power of envy and deceit. But more importantly, it underscored the strength of my own resolve and the value of choosing love, integrity, and growth over bitterness. Closing this chapter of my life brought a deep sense of closure. The journey had been painful and fraught with challenges, but it had also been enlightening. It had taught me the power of resilience, the importance of forgiveness, and the necessity of focusing on what truly matters. The road ahead felt bright with possibility. With John as my steadfast partner, Lily's laughter infusing our days with joy, and the community initiative becoming a beacon of hope for others, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Life, while imperfect, was ours to build, and I was ready to embrace the future with an open heart. As I looked forward, I carried with me the certainty that our family's strength and unity would be the foundation for whatever came next. The trials of the past had tested us, but they had also fortified us. And with that, I stepped into the next chapter, knowing that together, we could weather any storm and savor every moment of peace and happiness that lay ahead.